Today, we brought Judd in from the pasture here in Texas. This is September, and we've had quite a lot of heat for about the last 3 months. This will be his first set of shoes in months. The grass played out. I apologize for his poor looking condition, but I'm going to walk around. We will observe the horse, discuss what needs to be trimmed. We'll shape the shoes and shoe all 4 feet. We'll have about an hour of film footage with shoeing our 8-year-old gelding Judd here in Boerne, Texas. This is like the 5th of September. All of the explanations for the math proportions, for how to trim the toe, how to trim both heels, how to position hooves to bring them back underneath the bone column. Remember, we shoe our horses for form and function, to prevent lamenesses, help keep them sound, increase their useful life. And we put flexibility in our shoes so that we can maximize the amount of blood supply going in and out of a horse's foot. We want our shod horses to have the best structural integrity and natural motion, getting blood in and out of their feet in order to grow the best hooves genetically possible. So this is Judd, and he's about to get his first set of shoes for the summer. To shoe a horse, we'll shorten all 4 feet, start to push the toe back. We'll push a foot forward, we'll dress it. Once we have that hoof capsule symmetrical, we'll take the time to shape shoes. When the shoe is shaped, we'll go ahead and nail the shoe on. So this procedure here, simply pick up feet and shorten. You can use a hoof knife to remove the sole. If you have developed an eye and you know how much hoof you want to trim, in Texas we cut a lot of this harder hoof with our nippers because the soles are so hard. It's tough to cut it with a knife. So I skip the knife part and jump in with the nippers. Here, there's contact in the ground there. When I trim the feet, that buttress will move all the way back here. So we're shortening these feet. The heel's growing forward and sloping. That's the contact with the ground. That causes the bump in the hairline. To prepare a hoof for a shoe, you lower the heel enough to shift that buttress back under the bulb. We're lowering the heel. We're lowering the heel so that the frog is on the ground. The buttress shifts, and now we got support under the bulb, this portion of the foot. So we are trimming our horse's hoof in preparation for shoeing. Shorten the heel, shorten the toe, and I will back the toe up in the forward position. I'll ask Judd to step over a little bit, and we'll trim the other foot. Oftentimes, as you shoe a horse, it's important that you have matched front feet. Both front feet, similar angle, similar length, similar front to back positioning. With that type of positioning, you have both front feet will be the same hoof angle. They'll be underneath the front legs in a similar fashion. You increase his performance. Once again, I can show you, there's where he's walking on the ground. There's where he's on the ground. He's going to be supported back here. I hope that becomes clear the more you trim and shoe horses. It's difficult for me to use my knife in this Texas heat. This is like concrete. So what I will do is I'll be careful not to go too deep, but I know that his length is such that that sole and that hoof wall has to be shortened. Now you can see the support is here. We shorten the heel to put the frog close to the ground. And because that heel will slope forward, the minute you shorten the heel that 1/4 inch in length, our horse can now have support back under the rear of his bone column, the rear of his leg. You can now have support under the rear portions of his hoof capsule. We want the frog on the ground. Now that I've broken that crust a little bit, I'm able to use a hoof knife to slightly concave Hoof knives are kind of an interesting tool. They have a curve so that they will cut as I draw it towards me. If the cutting edge is here when it's in my right hand, that's a right hoof knife. If it were like this and the cutting edge were here, I'd have a left-handed hoof knife. In recent years, loop knives have become popular. I can pull it towards me, cutting the left side of the frog. I can pull it toward me, cutting the right side of the frog. You might be frustrated when your horse picks up his tail and poops on the floor, but maybe you'll be encouraged because if the horse lifts his tail, he has to relax. So maybe you got a real nervous horse. He'll come in here and he'll poop, and once he's made a mess for you, maybe he'll relax. We have done the preparation work underneath his front feet. We've shortened the length of the heel, shortened the length of the toe. We'll take a camera in a little bit and show you that we still have some difficulties because the toe is too far forward. Not sure that I was understood. I trimmed the left front foot. I moved over, I trimmed the right front foot. And I had a picture in my mind. When I got over to the right front, I had just left the left front. So it's easier for me to remember the shape of the corresponding mate if I do them as pairs. Now I'm doing the left hind. I'll be thinking about what the left hind looks like when I move and trim the right hind. This horse has been really sick. Thought we might lose him. He had an infection in his spinal cord called EPM. So we spent the last 6 months doctoring, and he's nearly healed, but he needs rehabilitation to strengthen his hind end. I'm not sure if you have 100% recovery or not. The medicines have improved so much in the last 20 years that with EPM, it's not the death sentence that it was at the turn of the century. Texas shoeing horses in the summertime will give you some nipper practice and hard hoof concrete. An experienced farrier will make a mental note of the size and shape of this foot, and when we do go to the animal to shape shoes, we'll create that shape in our mind, transfer it to the shoe, and then have to have the shoe shape to the symmetry of the white line if we are going to nail the shoe on. There I'm using the back side of my hoof knife to remove junk. Feeder this dry. I don't trim full length of the nipper blade every time I take a bite. I only move the nipper up about 1/4 of an inch. part of that might be the EPM. This is which affects his motor. We'll open the valleys with the nipper. Break that part of the frog is almost undermined, it almost enslaved. Now, let's take a moment. I'll bring the camera forward and I'll show you film footage. The feet still look a little bit different, but we shortened the toe, we shortened the heel. Both hind feet have had the heels shortened, the toes shortened. Both front feet have had the toes shortened. But you can see the toes, especially the left front, still looks longer than the right front. And it isn't so much length as it is the left front hoof capsule has been stretched forward. Now we could set the shoe back under and push the toe back. We'll probably take some time and go ahead and pull the feet forward and push the toe back with our nippers so I don't have to do so much rasping. So I'll do that now. So now I'm going to use my nippers to push these toes back a little bit here. So when I'm pulling forward to dress, I don't have to use my glass so much. I wanted to set the feet on the ground with simply trimming length. Now I'm forming the hoof capsule, pushing the toe part of the capsule back towards the bulbs, and most of that pushing the foot back you do on a stand, foot stand, in the forward position. But I can actually use my nippers to mark the distance in front of the point of the frog to the breakover, the backup point of the horse's hoof. If you consider for a moment, this is the hoof capsule. Front feet break over the toe, extend, and land just an instant more to the heel. Back feet is a conical shape, but it picks up and it lands flat and slides. Back feet always maintained better naturally because of that arc of motion. I'm using my nippers to mark where the front of that toe should be, and by definition, that front of the toe is called the breakover. And the last, especially front feet, the last point of contact with the ground is that breakover point. Breakover is the very front portion of the toe on a hind foot but it's not necessarily rolling over like the front foot. The arc of motion is different in front and hind feet. If I take a moment and use my last to establish the breakover, establish a forward point. Now you realize there's two ways to move a foot back. You shift the buttress back when you position the heels so the buttress is under the bulbs. That brought the foot back. Bring the toe back by getting rid of that forward toe that has stretched up and away from the coffin bone, and upward stretching of that toe at the breakover is addressed the same on both front feet. When you're done, both front feet will look like each other. You sort of create a mirror imagery between the left front and the right front. If you go back to view these videos again, you'll realize that this left front foot was stretched forward more than the right front. So I'm taking care of that abnormal forward position by backing up the toe first with my nippers. And then we'll pull forward. Maybe I could have you, I'd like to, this is another, maybe hand me the phone. You see a marked improvement in our symmetries. I haven't used a rasp much for back and feet up. I've only used the nippers. And I used the nipper more on my left front than I did the right front. But in foot preparation for shoeing, we positioned the length of the toe and the heel, and we pushed the toe back. Judd is just here as happy as could be, thinking, man, I like this stuff. This feels good. Yeah, so we should get rid of that fly. Okay, we'll do that. So we spent some time with the nippers, shorten heel, shorten toe. We use the nipper, push the toe back. In preparation for shoeing, I'm preparing this foot, and I'm actually pulling the foot forward, and I'm dressing flares, plus moving the toe back slightly prior to shaping my shoes. When you rasp, it's critical that you float a rasp. This is a guide, but I don't want to be putting too much down pressure. I use the smooth side of my rasp to make kind of a roundness, so that won't be chipping. I use the smooth side to blend in. The natural growth is the top 3/8 of an inch, and the straight edge from there helps you position the hoof perfectly. So that foot is ready to have a shoe shaped and have it nailed on. We'll do the same with the left hind. I'm using it to back up the toe slightly. He went long between intervals. The hoof capsule is forward of its natural position. Anything that deviates and stretches to the outside is called flare. It's unnatural. Before you ask him to walk on this hoof wall and dissipate concussion, you want these hoof tubules to be very symmetrical and very straight. And the way you establish this symmetry and where you position that hoof capsule dictates how that hoof capsule can grow straight down in a very symmetrical, uniform fashion. This is the front foot that had the worst forward stretching. It had the most forward stretching. So it will take the most rasping and I'm rasping to push the breakover back. I want to rasp until I'll have a very straight hoof capsule from the center of the toe all the way to the ground. That forward kind of a ski, that stretching upward, is very abnormal and it needs to be gone. So you can prepare hooves, sculpt them in the best position mechanically possible, and that's the way that foot will grow. So we have all 4 feet trimmed. We have 3 feet pulled forward and sculpted in a very symmetrical, uniform fashion. Judd might want to go to town Saturday night, and he wouldn't feel as good as if his feet weren't beautiful. So my job is to make Judd beautiful. See where we're headed? The top 3/8 is the normal growth, and I'm extending that hoof capsule in a straight line from the hairline all the way to the weight-bearing surface of the shoe. We've completed the processes for the rough trimming, the rough position on the bottom. We pulled feet forward and we blended the hoof capsule, pressed the flares. Now we come back to this position. I'm going to grab my rasp real quick. We'll have the surface that we've established from our trim. Sometimes I trim underneath the horse and clean up valleys with the rough trim. Sometimes I just get the rough trim, get out of the way. Now we have hoof that has been trimmed and prepared to receive a shoe. The outer hoof wall, the cream color is the white line. White pigment is the inside texture to the hoof wall itself. That black staining there is cream colored, is carrying a little bit of dirt and crap. Here we've got some actual mechanical separation in the hoof wall itself. This will be covered by the shoe. It'll just grow down and be nothing. The nails have to go in that cream colored portion so that shoe to be properly shaped. Just like that. Before we nail that on, I'll get a marker and I'll show you where the white line is. This is what that shoe will be like. That's the shape of the shoe for me to nail it. With our hammer, we slightly concave the inner edge of the web of that shoe. You can probably see it against my shirt. Slightly lower. I beat it down with the hammer. It's not completely flat. The heels will touch, the toe will touch, and when I drive my nails and block them, it will kind of spring load. Then when I bend the nail back to itself and form the clinch, that clinch is somewhat spring loaded. I fit a lot of that concavity in a horse's shoe, slight amount in every shoe, which helps us maintain a tighter clinch if we have to get a lot of range. This is positioned, and that's where I will nail the shoe when I'm ready. Now we'll go a little bit more of the full process. Camera, go ahead and come in closer. Here we have the foot prepared for shoeing. It's still hard as concrete. Maybe most of the finesse work is done with my plater's rasp. It's a horseshoeing rasp. I hadn't done anything to clean up the commissures. We'd like to have these valleys on each side of the frog, which in the textbook, when I started shoeing 55 years ago, they were called commissures, which was a French word for valley. So if you share this with your French friends, they won't like my French accent. Commissures. My father has some rewards that were given to him. And then mainly they come from cities that they liberated in Belgium and Germany. But it's pretty nice. I was doing some clinics and was teaching in Milano, Italy, and I could look up at the mountains, and that was France. So that's the closest I've ever been. Our box shoes come in kind of a pointed toe, looking kind of just this position, this shape. I have to find kind of the center of mass. It takes less steel to go from the break over here, less steel on the inside, more steel on the outside. I will go to the anvil and I will attempt, eventually I will achieve the shape of this foot so that I can drive my nails in that creamy colored area inside this very thin hoof wall. Texas bred running quarter horse. Lots of speed, light, thin hoof walls. And you'll do better if you don't put aluminum shoes and put a rigid shoe, like a heavy steel shoe. We would take the grinder and we would relieve the pressure on our front shoes before we put them on. I'm going to open the toe, straighten the inside branch, straighten the outside branch, make that toe symmetrical. Start bringing the outside branch in. Remember there's going to be more steel on this side of the shoe. Bring the inside in. Tuck the heel on the inside. That branch went fairly straight, then tuck. This comes out, and then a wrap around. The heel's a little bit different. I took a picture in my mind of the shape of that hoof, and I walked over here to the anvil and shaped the shoe that symmetrical shape. It gets better as the decades go along. You get literally hundreds of thousands of horseshoes to practice on. Okay. But it's because your mind doesn't have an imagery language for this shape. So I tried that. The inside follows perfectly around the toe slightly. This is the foot that had to come back so much. Then this is over the white line. So now I want a line across both heels to be square with a line across the bulbs. I have that. Just a little bit too full right here. And I can nail that shoe on. So we will hope to give you a video in which Bergie and Judd out in their barn on 100-degree heat in Texas, maybe only 97. There it is. That's the shoe I'll nail on this foot. It's going to be back slightly more. I'm going to have hoof wall. I'm going to have shoe bearing the hoof wall, but I will have backed up the toe to ensure the hoof capsule will go down and not forward. We have some friends in Italy that are requesting some personal videos on how we remove metal on the top and the bottom of this toe area so that these branches move in easier and they move out easier. If this bridge between the first nail hole on the inside and the outside branch, first nail outside, first nail inside, if that bridge is too stiff, too rigid as steel, these can't spring. If I grind and remove steel here, a little bit underneath, I can have a shoe that will actually move with the horse's foot when he loads with weight to take a stride to travel. You actually help these horses grow a bigger heart if you stop locking that foot up solidly, let the foot breathe. Those of you that have done some running and are familiar with the story of Nike, remember the revolution that hit the running world when Nike came up with a better shoe. Well, Bergie and Hoof Talk are about to come up with a better shoe. We've been doing this for over 20 years and we're tired of fussing with mild steel. We have the shoe for the front. We have the shoe for both fronts. Here we have, let me grab my graph. In the process, we prepared all 4 feet. We have 3 shoes shaped. We've not shown the entire hammering process. This is the shape we start with. And you can visualize the shape of this hind foot. I had only rough trimmed with the nippers. Now I'm knocking the high spot. We have pulled forward, we dressed flares. I haven't used my loop knife to open up the commissures. Remember, that's the French word for valley. Mm-hmm. When you're trimming feet, you get in the habit of trimming these valleys first and looking for an exit point. Pretend that you're a little marble and let's just say your manure and your trash and you're in this valley. When you step down, you want to ooze on back, ooze on rearward, and you want it to exit the V at the valley. So we open up the commissures and identify that V spot. We teach in trimming height to heel, you tip it down, and the height to heel is within 1/4 inch of that valley. It's a general rule that you learn, and it prevents you from leaving abnormally high, unnaturally high heels because you want that valley to be self-cleaning. Now we have the valleys clean, we have the shape, we have our typical horseshoe, which peg shoes they call them, tend to be somewhat pointy. It's a pretty good point for that one. It's straight and a tuck here, and the outside is just kind of gentling around. So it doesn't take as much shaping on the anvil. Did that fall?
No.
Oh, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the more I'm at this, the more I get really conscientious, and I want this camera to be just right. Just kidding. It's been kind of tough for me to learn as a clinician to relax, to be myself. I'll share with you my experiences. I believe my experiences are things I've learned from horses. I don't believe the horses had any reason to lie to me. So if I'm telling you something about how I think we should shoe a horse, it's because that's what I believe the horse told me. We're very close on our shape. We have to get it in one plane. We need to get a little bit of concavity, a little bit of suck in that shoe. So both heels will contact that hoof wall on the bottom. Both heels contact simultaneously. The toe contacts with a little bit of elevation on both branches. Once I drive my nails, block my nails, the clinches will have a little bit of a spring loading in them. And if you get some rain and some dry and some rain and some dry, There we're okay. We could nail that shoe on. We have to modify his shoes because of the extreme thinness of his hoof wall. I have grown good hoof wall on lots of horses. It's almost 30 years ago since I started relieving steel shoes so that they would let the foot move slightly. We need better shoes, but from that cream color to the outside is less than 1/4 of an inch. From this nail to the outside is 1/4 of an inch, less than 1/4 of an inch. So when I nail that shoe, it will be right over the white line. I'm just going to back the toe up just slightly. If you are going back and forth to a horse's hoof, wanting to shape the shoe to a foot, here's the routine. You walk over here, you elevate the foot so you can see the bottom of the foot, but don't cover it up. Hold it side by side and ask yourself, is this toe the shape? Is this the shape? Is this the shape? You do segments. You compare segments. Then, once you're here and you know the shape you're moving to, you can cover it, look through your holes to make sure that you're starting in the white line. So we can nail that shoe on. But I'm memorizing the shape here and then going to it and check my nail holes. Even once I've got it covered, I know when I'm looking at the shoe, I can remember what the shape was down below. The shape below determines this shape. You don't shape in this and drive it to fit. That's when you end up with nailing problems because you can hit soft tissue. So all 4 shoes are prepared. 2 front, 2 hind. We will take a minute with the grinder, and I'm going to relieve each shoe for this bridge in the toe area. I'm going to relieve the front and the hind shoes, right and left side. In order to be nice to Judd, I'm going to take a minute and jump him into his stall. And then he doesn't have to deal with the grinder. So we'll be back in a minute. This is a fairly large grinder and it's fairly noisy. I've got safety type glasses on. It's hardened prescription glasses because I work in metals a lot. But I wouldn't recommend using the grinders without the proper safety equipment. I just trust you people with the grinders that own the grinders know more than I do because I'm just a horseshoer. I'm going to relieve the strength of the bridge in that toe area. Got a pretty good start. The shoes will start getting hot, so I may switch between shoes, or you may just see me set it down fast. That's like the old boy in the frontier days. He picks up a shoe that burned his hand, but The blacksmith says, was it hot? He says, no. He says, it just doesn't take me long to look at a horseshoe. So if you see me set a shoe down, that might be it. Remember, I'm concentrating on the area between the two toe nails. If I get right next to the toenail here and a ½ inch from the toenail here, I just created a plastic joint. It'll be weaker there because of where the hole is positioned. So as I'm weakening the bridge area between the right and left branch, I'm trying to stop the exact distance, a ½ inch from that nail hole and a ½ inch from this one. I'm trying to make this weakened bridge very symmetrical so that it will last a full cycle, maybe a full reset. If I have one point that's ground thinner, that's the plastic joint. All the motion is that one joint, and that shoe will prematurely break. So I do spend some time to try and have as uniform a blend on that bridge when I'm done. Now, at one point I've weakened the bridge here. I've weakened the bridge there, and at one point I got mixed up and I started grinding to that next nail hole. I caught my mistake. You can see that the bridge that I've ground, ½ inch to that nail hole, within a ½ inch of this nail hole. So that is putting more flexibility in a steel horseshoe so the shoe can move slightly with the foot. Now, instead of locking it in a cast, you allow blood flow to drop with gravity the full length of the coffin bone, but you have some motion now so that that blood can come out of that solar venous plexus and return to the heart. Once you realize the dynamics of that hoof was designed to have both branches out and back, out and back, out and back, out and back. Once you realize that's the way God designed it, you will stop putting all this heavy iron and you stop putting aluminum and titanium. You'll get a smarter fit and a better shoe because your horse needs a Nike or an Adidas or a New Balance or an Ariat. It needs a better running shoe. So that's the first shoe there, the right hind. Now that was right front, now I'll do the right hind. And I'll see if I can just concentrate and not mess up, get it done. I forgot to contour to put this taper on this shoe. Seems like I forgot one of those left shoes too, didn't I? New shoe. It's got the taper. This one's the one that's got the taper on. Remember we talked about the nail is within, the hoof wall is less than 1/4 inch thick. If your nail hole is set in 1/4 inch, if you place this right over the nail hole, the shoe is wider than the hoof wall and it'll get stepped off. We do, they used to call the Scotch bottom, where the Scotchman would taper this outside edge. Now come here and photo right over the top. From the outside edge of this nail hole to the outside of the shoe is 3/8 inch. That's the way they made the shoe. Well, the hoof wall on the horse is only 1/4 inch. So if you put the shoe so it's just under, it won't get stepped off, now you're driving a hot nail. When I have this nail here, it's 1/4 inch from the outside. My hoof wall is only 1/8 inch. So I put this taper. Now I open up my shoe. He won't, if he steps on that shiny part, he won't tear the shoe off because there's no lift, no cliff, no ledge. So now a thin wall, thin wall, thin wall. Less than 1/4, less than 1/4, less than 1/4. And the inside would probably just skip that toenail. Anyway, that's all we have on grinding for the elasticity. Putting the Scotch bottom edge on in order to position the nail pattern for the fineness or the coarseness of the nail pattern. We'll let these shoes cool. We'll bring Judd back in and we'll nail his shoes on, and then we will clinch, and that will complete the shoe. So the question was just asked about the way this horse is standing, where he's hip shot and he's just relaxing that left hind leg. Horses have a special check ligament at their stifle. They are a prey animal. When a human comes in their circle, with just a sense of smell, they know I'm a meat eater. They have their eyes set on the side of their head, and they protect themselves by running away. They're not really confrontational unless cornered. But that check ligament is designed so they can lock that hip in place and sleep standing up. So it's really valuable. When a horse has had some lameness issues, there might be tightness, muscles here or there. He'll go hip shot and relax. Maybe he gets tired and he goes hip shot on the other one. S-H-O-T, hip shot. So I don't know, we're going to, because he's been standing there so very comfortable on the right hind. I'm going to put the shoe for the left hind on first, just thinking maybe I can just come in here, pick up the foot, nail the shoe, and he doesn't have to shift his body weight on those other 3 legs. We previously discussed the separation of this hoof. I'm going to cut it out of the way. Where he's had some issues with his spine, and this is his first set of shoes since last spring. I don't know if he's going to be comfortable with me nailing a shoe on, or if he's going to worry about me. If I can hold a horse and allow him to remain comfortable, without stressing him, I love that. I don't agree that horses have to be uncomfortable just because I'm working on their feet. It'll be interesting to see, once the shoe is positioned, if he will immediately stand on this leg and relax the other one. That shoe shifted a little bit to the outside, so if I drive these nails first, that will, Judd, now you need to relax. I'm not hurting you. That was a good example of why you just want a leather apron. I knew that nail had hooked. I knew it wasn't going to go through my leg. And that's what he did to bend that back towards the ground so nobody gets stuck in themselves. Now remember, I don't want the side of this foot moving without taking the horseshoe with it. And when the horseshoe moves, I want it to take the foot with it. So I am utilizing my heel nails when I do this shoeing. And if I'm only using 3 nails to a branch and leaving a hole empty, I leave the toenail empty. Because I want the foot and the shoe move together simultaneously. Typically, I have shod most of my horses in my lifetime with 7 nails. The inside branch tends to be shorter in distance, so that's the one I'll use 3 nails on. There's a lick and a sigh and a relief. Thank God. So perhaps some of what he was feeling was a discomfort there. Because of the injuries he's been suffering, I suspect his right hind will be the most difficult shoe, most difficult hoof for me to shoe. Now it's very important when you're working on horses' feet, you position the 3 feet that you're going to leave on the ground left hind is going to remain on the ground. I want to take a minute, set it underneath him where it's square with the world. I don't want him to position that foot on the ground forward underneath his belly, because it'll put him in a power position. If he wants to frustrate me and fight me and stress and strain, I want that foot perpendicular to the ground. Here again, if I can work the horse low, remember this is the toe that's further forward, so as I set this shoe, I will be rasping more toe back. That nail is a little bit higher than what I would have desired. Part of it is I don't shoe horses every day anymore. Maybe I tend to be not as sharp. Maybe my craftsman skills are a little bit dull because I'm not shoeing every day. Part of it is I found out I need cataract surgery, so my vision isn't what it used to be. I had an old man tell me one time that getting older is not for wimps, and I'm starting to realize what it was he had in mind, what he was talking about. When I was young, there was a poem by a guy named Henry Wadsworth. And I don't remember the whole thing, but it was something about, for the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For the want of the shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of the horse, the soldier was lost. For the want of the soldier, the battle was lost. All for the want of a nail. So I said that wrong. Wadsworth's poem says, for the want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For the want of the shoe, the horse was lost. For the want of the horse, the soldier was lost. For the want of the soldier, the battle was lost. For the want of the battle, the war was lost, all for the want of a nail. Now, isn't that important to be a horseshoer? Think about it. Since his bout with EPM, he perhaps has soft tissue discomfort in the left hind. Since he was young, he had a little bit of reservation about being shot in the right hind. Today, he wants to keep going hip shot on that left foot. Can't tell if it's because he's really comfortable here or if he's uncomfortable on that one. But we can watch it. For those of you that love evaluating lamenesses in horses, it's not uncommon that the discomfort in the left hind makes you think that he's off and uncomfortable on a right front. The diagonal of a horse becomes a great mystery when you start studying locomotion. We have both hind shoes nailed on. Judd's being very wonderful, acting like a broke horse. I wasn't sure if the old cowboy goes to shoe his horse while they're filming. What if the old horse is mad at the cowboy and doesn't want to be shot? That'd be a horrible thing to put on camera. And here we are. For years, the Bishop Mule Days would have a contest called the World's Fastest Mule Shoer. It's rather interesting. They would do all the foot preparation and shoe shaping, and then when they come in the arena for the contest, they only timed driving 4 or 5 nails and clenching them, so it was not really a fastest shoeing competition as the fastest nailing. But we've taken a day to shoe Judd, which might put us in that category of the world's slowest horseshoe. It'd be nice if it looks good when we're done, because we're putting it on film for the whole world to see. We're going to position and nail all 4 shoes. We're going to keep the camera rolling, turn Judd around somehow, maybe put him in some cross ties. And do our finish work. We'd like you to realize that in 2012, 11-12, I filmed a whole bunch of lessons on how to trim and shoe a horse with the hoof talk method. And that filming day, we took about 13 hours under a tree. We did this big gray ranch horse named Jake. And eventually, we just decided to gift that entire series of how to shoe a horse to YouTube. So lessons 1 through 25, shoeing the ranch horse Jake, are different facets of how to shoe a horse, and he was fused in his pastern joint. So it has some discussions about ease of breakover, this and that. There's valuable footage. For those of you that are horseshoers, I would like you to entertain the thought of going through the hoof talk lessons 1 through 25. Send me some feedback. At the time I created those videos, I had just completed surgery on both right shoulders. Hadn't been shoeing very much for about 2 years, had gotten really fat. And there may be some gaps in those lessons that don't make sense. I wish you'd contact me, tell me, Bertie, in lesson number 17, when you talk about this, it doesn't make sense. Could you explain it? We'd love to do additional videos, give you more information. If you have a particular horse that is just a nightmare to figure out how to make him comfortable and sound to save his life, I love working to see if I can help these old campaigners be more comfortable. We will film a little session this afternoon. I got a 21-year-old youth rodeo horse, and he's been limping the 7 years I know him. We brought in Dr. Jarrett Poland, my son Lyle Bergeleen. They teamed up on that horse last Friday and put some mechanics in his feet. I'll go lead him in from pasture today to see how he's doing, and he's traveling without a head bob. I was really sure that he needed help on the right front, but because I wasn't x-raying, I wasn't evaluating the horse, that old horse Charger, he was bilaterally lame. And he's got bone changes in his navicular ligaments. And it's just, we can show you a complete series of what we've done. Today we'll just film him in his way of going, and you'll look at these huge rocker aluminum shoes with the elevated heels and stuff. But Charger is more comfortable than I've seen him, and I've known the horse for 7 years. So I would like our YouTube channel to become foremost in identifying types of lamenesses and then showing what we're doing for recovery, because I hate it when these horses suffer. So far, I've got 3 shoes nailed on. I've got 1 more shoe to position and nail, and then we will do the finish work on all 4 feet. So I was doing clinics back in about 2005. We're in Sweden, and there was a young fellow who worked for the government, and he made his living as a horseman. And he rode horses. He taught them for coach, for team, for wagon, for maple syrups, for this, for that, for the Queen's Chariot. I mean, Sven was just a tremendous horseman. But he's legendary for his storytelling. And what he would do is we're sitting around and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the sun's still up. And he'd look this way and he'd look that way and he'd say, now let me tell you, and he'd tell us the funniest story I ever heard. Well, about that 2nd or 3rd night, I took him aside. I said, Sven, I said, how come before you tell these wonderful stories, you always look to the right, to the left? What are you doing that for? What's this? What do you know that I don't? He says, well, Bergeleen, he says, nothing messes up a good story like a witness. So sometimes when I'm shoeing and enjoy visiting, I enjoy horseshoeing. This is 2023, and I actually put shoes on my first horse in 1969. So if you do the math, 69 and 31, I guess that ends up being 54 years since I put shoes on my first horse. I realized, anyway, folks, it's really a pleasure sharing information with you. Hope you would like and subscribe. And we would like to communicate with the rest of the horse world on anything we might figure out to help these horses be more comfortable. We've got 1 phase left in our shoeing of Judd. I'm going to take a minute, switch halters, because I have a halter that's got a longer lead rope. We'll put him in some cross ties. I'll grab my finish tools, and we will do the finish work in the forward position for Judd. It's called the finish work, and it's done in the forward position. And I've always used a foot stand. I had a broken back in 1969 when I started shoeing horses. And in those years, foot stands weren't something that your blacksmiths had. But I actually took a T-shaped milk stool and turned it upside down for the first foot stool that I ever used. I just could not rest it on my knee. Then it dawned on me, as the years went by, oftentimes when a farrier has gotten seriously injured, a horseshoer seriously injured, what had happened was he was in a forward position and that horseshoer started putting pressure on him and it drove him all the way into the ground. So when I have even a waspy bronc and I have the foot forward on a foot stand, if things blow sky high, he's not going to drive me into the ground. I'm just going to back up and get out of his way. And I'm using my sharpest rasp because I know I have to bring this toe back to get to my critical 1/3 measurement, which is a hoof torque measurement. I want these hoof capsules back beneath the leg. And I want the hoof capsule to go down and not forward. Judd's feet were very natural last spring when we just started letting him go because of his injury. And that's one reason he didn't have big time serious jamming and distorted hairlines because he's had a natural foot now I've owned him for 4 years now, I guess. I spent more time feeding him than I have riding him. Any of you horse owners identify with that. So that is the finish work on the right front foot for Judd. Now I personally feel very comfortable being directly underneath these horses because they like the way I smell. I don't intimidate horses. I've known horseshoers that honestly shouldn't even be in the business because their personality is such and their whole being is such that horses don't like them. But the poor horsemanship within the farrier world is something that'll be there because of the means to make a good living if you're willing to work hard. But I've had some really good cowboys from the old cowboy country up in that Oregon Methow Valley up there in the northeast corner of Oregon, where the Dorrance boys originated. And some of those ranchers had looked at me and says, you gotta have an awful lot of confidence in your belly to get underneath a horse like this when you're doing the finish work. But the other thing that I don't do is I don't tie these horses solid. I believe that rope is going to slip. Maybe not. I got quite a few wraps on it. But I don't expect my horse to be crazy. Still a horse, it still can happen. Remember, this was the worst foot when he came in off the pasture. This is the one that was so far forward. You might look at it and say, oh, I bet it's going to take a year to get that foot back where it belongs. No, it's taken 2 days because I've been talking so much. But you can absolutely sculpt natural feet, and these horses appreciate you. Not sure where to go next. Are you able to shift the camera slide? We typically call the portion of the horseshoe nail that we throw away, we typically call it a ring off. For years, people weren't using an extra set of cutters to remove the ring off. They would just twist it with the claw of their hammer, bend it over and clinch it. We've become more beauty conscious than we used to be. Plus, we don't want any sharp burrs that would cut your hands if you're picking up the feet to clean them or handling the hooves in any way. So you want to have these shoes, these clinches, bent back to the shoe to keep the nail from going out, that clinch, but you don't want sharp edges so that they'll cut somebody's hands if they're handling the hoof. And sometimes horses track close enough and maybe a horse lays down, getting up, leg brushes against another leg. If your clinches are really crude and rough, you might end up scraping some hide someplace. So we clinch the feet, keep the nails from backing out and keep the shoe from falling off. We make the hoof capsule very symmetrical, and that's how it will grow down. It'll grow down according to how I shape the hoof. But I'm not trying to make him different. I'm only trying to give him a very symmetrical grip wall that will evenly dissipate or absorb concussion. We're going to take a minute and move our cameras, and we'll do the finish work on the right hind foot. A shot of all 4 feet down low, and you gotta be careful, you're going into the sun there. Oops. Around here and go, make sure the sun doesn't back. Now turn him right, really right. You just steer it down to the ground, get some at eye level. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. You're wonderful.